Hi everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas here on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. I'm excited to be here to share with y'all tonight. My plan for tonight is to talk a little bit about ukulele. I know a lot of people are very excited about ukulele, using the ukulele in the classroom, teaching kids how to play the ukulele. And there are a lot of people who are very excited, but then have no idea what they're doing. I'm one of those people. This is my first year teaching the ukulele, and I definitely found some cool things along the way, and there were definitely some stumbling blocks along the way. So I just wanted to share just a little bit with y'all about the resources I used, the process I took, and because I'm finishing up my ukulele unit right now. And so I figured now's a great time while it's all really fresh to sort of just share with y'all, like, this is what worked for me. This is a process you could consider. Let's talk through your questions. Thanks to everyone who saw my post this morning on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and left questions for me about questions. You have all legitimate questions because let me just, again, be honest. I am a noob. This is my first year doing this. So there are a lot of things now that I'm writing down because I'm coming sort of to the end of teaching ukulele. Things that I'm writing down saying like, don't do it this way next year, or don't forget about this resource for next year. So those are all things I sort of wanted to just run through and talk about a little bit tonight so that you all got an idea of where I am in the process, and also, what you might do if you're teaching ukulele, or if you are teaching ukulele, things you might change or add, or any of those sorts of things. So that's my plan for tonight. I'm not doing like an intro or a run through my K through 5 lesson plans because I did that last week and I'm running the same lesson plan. So if you want to know what I'm teaching in my other classes, you can go back and watch last week and figure that out. But my plan tonight is just sort of share sort of a little bit about my journey, about how I got to teaching ukulele and all the things that happened along the way, and then resources you can use in your classroom, processes you might think about using in your classroom as you teach ukulele to students, or as you just use the ukulele yourself in your classroom. As always, thanks so much for leaving questions and comments. I will definitely try and go back and hit questions along the way. There are a lot of things that I was like, ooh, I gotta say this, oh, I gotta talk about this, what about this other thing? And I know I can't cover it all tonight, so I have a couple blog posts planned for the future with some resources and fun things I found. I'm listing a bunch of those things on my Musical Mondays recap page on my blog, but I know I'm going to forget some things. So if you are listening or watching and you go, oh, that's a really cool idea, and then you go to the links page and you're not there, it's not there, send me an email or send me a message saying like, hey, remember the chord block things you talked about? You didn't put a link. Could you put that in? And I will go back and do that. Because honestly, for like the last hour, I've been sitting at my computer like, I gotta remember this, I gotta remember this, I gotta put this in, So I've tried to put a lot of those in there, but I know I'm gonna forget some things. So that's my disclaimer. But please send me a message and I'll absolutely go back and put those links on. So let me take you back in time to when I first got excited about using a ukulele. I had some really good friends in Michigan who loved ukulele, who loved their ukulele, loved teaching ukulele. And I loved the idea of teaching ukulele, but I had no idea how I would get there. I had no idea what I would use for resources. And honestly, I had no idea how to play. So one year for Christmas, I asked my family and said, I would like a ukulele for Christmas. And that was one of the main things I asked for, because I figured if I was going to teach it, I would have to know sort of how to play it a little bit. And so I asked for a ukulele for Christmas, and I got one. I actually asked for and got this soprano Kala ukulele. If you're looking for an introductory brand that's not like bargain brand, but not like super duper expensive, Kala's really nice. I really have loved the Kala that I have. It worked really well in my classroom for a very long time. It works really well for like going and doing stuff or playing with other people. It's just a nice brand. The brand Kala has their Kala ukuleles, and then they have a slightly less expensive version called Makala, but I'll get to that later. But if you're looking for one for yourself, get a nice wooden one. Get a Kala or a Luna or something else that that you like. But I would say ask around. I asked around and all my friends said, get a kala. So I got a kala. But what you get is totally up to you. Or you could just get a cheaper one or a more expensive one, whatever you want. But this was nice for me because it wasn't a huge investment as far as like, I'm not going to feel like if I drop it, I'm going to, keel over. But it's not super duper expensive, but it is a really nice instrument. So this is what I got. And I got the ukulele, and then I went out and bought a strap. But I just started using it. I used it in class. I used it with students. If we were sitting around in a circle learning a basic song in K1 or 2 or whatever, I pulled out my ukulele and it would accompany as best I could. Guess what? The students didn't judge me for it. No kid was like, ooh, Mr. Rao, your strumming pattern is really bad. Like, nobody said that. So if you are thinking about, ooh, I want to be able to teach this to my older kids, pull it out with your primary age kids. They're just going to be excited that you have it, and they're going to love watching you play it. And even if you like mess up, I mean, who cares? Just take it and try it. And then that forces you to use it and learn it better. And one of the things I realized, like as I was playing, I was like, I learned 3 or 4 chords that I could use with most songs with my younger primary kids in those very basic So-Me songs or just, those kids songs. And so what I realized was if I had those 2 or 3 chords, well, then it was like, oh, wait, there's a song with, random extra chord, random, other chord that I want to use. Oh, so then I would learn that as I was going. And I'd say, oh, I've got a song with, it's mostly C and F and G, but then there's an A minor. Oh, I don't know A minor. Okay. And so then I'd learn it for that song and then I'd learn it. I'm going to have a random, I don't know. You might find you need that other chord. Well, then as you go, you learn it and it'll come into your repertoire. So that's sort of what I did. And that was my plan to get started. So the first step for me was I got my own ukulele. One of the things that I got with it was a strap, and I really recommend this brand. It's called the Hug Strap. I actually, this is so funny, I ordered several different ukulele straps because I'm going to do a blog post about what are our different options if you're looking for straps. And this is a really great one, but there are going to be some others on my blog that I'll share a little bit about. But this one is super great, and I'll put it on as I'm talking, but this is the one that I used in my class. And I would say that if you are going to use the ukulele in instruction, like you are going to play it as kids are doing a game, or you're going to play it as, in place of like a bourdoon on an Orff instrument, or you're going to play it as an accompaniment or something else, get a strap. Because as you're walking around, there are going to be times when you're going to want to be hands-free. You don't have to set it down. You don't want to have to, hand it off. Get a strap that you can use that will be worthwhile. The cool thing about this brand, the Hug Strap, is that, it hugs your ukulele. Most straps, you need to have like an end pin, a place for the ukulele to sort of grab on. But the Hug Strap is not like that. It actually hugs your ukulele, so you don't have to drill into your ukulele if you don't have that end pin. So here, as I'm putting it on, as I'm trying to talk and think, here it is. It's hugged around my ukulele, and then this is actually one of the older versions. They come in a ton of different prints. You can choose some really cool prints, but it just snaps together and I'm done and I can put it on. But like I said, if you're going to use it for instruction, get yourself a strap that you can go hands-free. And there are some straps that do not make that easy. So find one that you like and find one that's going to work for you so that you can be hands-free if you need to. Okay, so I got my ukulele. I used it in class. I sort of started using it myself. And one of the things that I would tell you is I play piano. That's what I grew up playing since 2nd grade. I'm a singer, but I play piano and I use that off and on with kids as accompaniment. And I play guitar sometimes in class, but the ukulele is so much easier than the guitar to learn. It's only 4 chords. One of the things that always frustrated me about guitar is like, wait, there are strings I can't play. Like there are some you're not supposed to play at certain times. And ukulele, all the time you're playing all the strings. So you never have to be like, okay, I can only strum the bottom 2. No, you're fine. You can play any of the strings. So that I really loved about the ukulele. It made it super simple to use and learn with my students as I was going. Okay, so that was my first step. And then once I got really comfortable with it, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I would love to teach my students, but I don't have any ukuleles. I have my ukulele, so what am I gonna do? And I needed to get ukuleles. And so I knew that I needed to either get funding from my PTA or my school or somewhere, and I didn't know where to get that. So the first thing I would say is ask around. People who you know who teach ukulele, how did they get their ukuleles? Was there a PTA that granted them money? Was there a local school organization? Did they get a grant? What did they do? I would ask that first. I had some people who won a contest. I had some people who got the money from their school. I had some people who would do a fundraiser every year. And I got a lot of different ideas. Eventually, I asked, people in my county, like, how did you get the money for that? And I asked, and my friend Julie said, oh, I applied for this grant that is specific to our county. And I said, oh, is that open every year? And she's like, yeah, there are several every year. And I was like, oh, can I look at your grant application? So she sent me her grant application, and I didn't change the name Julie to David in the grant application and just resubmit it. But I used it. It was nice to see the format she used and why, and like what sort of things she put in the grant application. So if you know somebody who has done this in the past, ask them how they did it, ask them what they ordered, ask them why they ordered it, and then see if you can use something similar. So I asked Julie, and I actually had my grant funded, and that's how I got my ukuleles. I got 36 ukuleles. In that whole process, I had to put together an application of what I wanted and how many ukuleles and all the accessories and things. And I looked at what Julie had used, and then I looked at what my friends had used, and then I called West Music, because I have bought from West Music for a long, long time. I know that they're a good company, but I also knew that if you go to westmusic.com and you just fill up your cart and order it, you will pay more if you call West Music and say, I am calling from Woodstock Elementary School, or if I'm calling from somewhere else, from this, Cherokee County Education or, school district or whatever. They usually have an education price that is less than what's online. So I called and said, I'd like to buy 36 ukuleles. And they said, oh, cool. Well, if you do, we would give you X amount discount. And I was like, oh, I'd like to buy 2 more ukuleles or whatever. And so they really helped me out with a great discount, but also a really quality instrument. What I really love the most about that process was they have someone whose job it is to just do ukuleles and guitars. I worked with Sam Marchuk, who's great. If you ever go to a state convention, he's usually there. But the nice thing that Sam did was he's like, oh, West Music has a blog, and I wrote an article about class set of ukuleles. Here's the link. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's helpful. And then he said, oh, and also you're asking for this and this and this. Do you really want that here? Other people who've purchased ukuleles in the past, they are looking for sets like this, or I think have you thought about a cart? Or you really don't need this many extra replacement strings. You're probably not going to break so many. So maybe let's take that number down, and instead you can get a couple more tuners. He helped me really fine tune what I needed for my classroom, and he gave me a really great quote and also just helped me along in the process. So it was cool because West Music, I was getting a discount. They were helping me figure out what I really, really did need. And they were working with me in the process. And the whole time, I'm emailing back and forth with Sam, and I'm like, remember, this is for a grant. I don't know if I'm going to buy any of this. And he was like, no, that's okay. And if you get it, great, order it. But if you don't, it's okay. I'm happy to help. So I would, again, personal experience, really great experience with West. You can check them out. I see other people in the comments saying, Little Kids Rock. I know Music is Elementary does some really great things. But go with a brand that is gonna help you, and it's gonna help you know what to do. West Music is great for that. If you have a local music store that's really willing to help and get you exactly what you need, great. But don't go on to Woodwind Brasswind and just buy from the website. Call and see if there are people who can give you a discount for buying multiples if you're able to do that, and then help you figure out what you really need. There were things in my original order. Again, I was a newbie. There are things that I was asking for that I did not need. Or maybe money would have been better spent in other ways. So which ukuleles did I get? Remember, I bought a Kala for myself. Kala has a discount brand, like a lower price bracket brand called Makala. And so these were the instruments I bought. There's a line called like the Waterman, which is I think the lower price. I did not get those, but I have several friends who have them and love them. And then I got these ones. They're called, these are sharks. If you see the bridge is an image of a shark. They're also dolphins where the bridge is an image of a dolphin. But they come in lots of different colors, fun island colors. And so I bought 9 different colors. If I was planning it now, I would have bought 10 because I love color coding. But I bought 9 different colors. I bought 4 of each. So I ended up with 36 ukuleles. I'm planning on doing another little mini grant for those 4 more so I can have 40 total in 10 different colors. That's my plan ultimately. But a year ago, I didn't know I was going to do that. But I got all of those ukuleles plus a rolling cart and also tuners and some extra strings and a tenor ukulele all through that one grant. Wes was great and gave me a discount and also really helped me sort of slim down, like, you don't need this, you don't need this, you might need this, think about this, you might want this, order this on the next thing. Like they helped me sort of process through like, okay, the next time you order, if you want to get another thing, it was really nice. So I got all soprano Makalas. They're really sturdy. They hold their tune really well. And like I said, I got a bunch of different colors. You could get all the same color. You could get school colors. The reason I bought like a rainbow of colors is because I thought it would look cool first, but also I thought that maybe my kids would want to order different things or not order, they'd want to play different things. So like having our school colors is okay. But I thought it'd be cool to have different options. Like, what are you feeling today? You feeling a blue? You feeling a red? You feeling a white? A red, a green? I don't know. And so it's actually funny to see what kids choose and why. So I don't know, my own personal preference, but get what you think would be nice. Okay, so I got my grant. I looked around. I would say, ask friends, how did they get things funded? Look for grants and things locally. On my blog, there is a whole page of grants, scholarships, and things you can use for your classroom. Some of them would not pertain to ukuleles. Many of them will. So I put a link to that on the links page, but there's a whole page with ideas about how you can get things funded. Donors Choose you can sometimes use. I would not suggest getting a whole class set through Donors Choose. That's a big ask. You could do it in pieces. But, think about it yourself. Like I said, honestly, I did not think I was going to get my class set because my friend Julie got it last year, a ukulele set. And I was like, no way they're going to fund this 2 years in a row. And they did. So you never know until you ask and check it out. And like I said, on my blog, there's a page about grants and things. But ask locally, look locally. You never know. Maybe your PTA or a church nearby or a local ed foundation or a retired teacher or someone wants to give and they just don't know that you need ukuleles. So look locally first. So some other brands, if you're interested in looking for ukuleles, I'd love to hear other people's suggestions. I know Makala is a good brand. Kala is a great brand. I've heard amazing things about Luna. And those are really nice ukuleles. I think maybe they're nice ukuleles like for me to play. I don't know of anyone who has a class set. But I do know that Luna gave an entire set of ukuleles to American Orff Schulwerk Association to use for our national conference, and then that it travels around the country every year. So if they think that they're able to be used for little hands, I think that's great. So that's another brand. But I know that there's another brand, I can't think of it, that other people have. So if you're watching and you're like, oh, I have this other brand and it works great, leave that comment in there. Okay, some things that you might think about if you're going to order that you maybe didn't initially like, oh yeah, I need, this other thing. So ukuleles, obviously. you might want to think about, how are you going to store them? Do you want a cart? Do you want those hangers you can drill into the wall? Do you want, I mean, how are you going to, do you want like a standing rack, a rolling rack? How are you going to store them, and what's going to work best for you? So that's something to think about. I ended up getting a rolling cart. There's a really fun cart you can get. I think it's from like Band Supply or AB Band Supply or something. And it looks like a ukulele. So it's sort of fun. You can get one that holds 18. You can get one that holds 30. My uke cart holds 30. And if you watch my Instagram stories from the beginning of the year, you know that it was a pain in the butt to put together. But it looks really cool and it holds up super well. So anyway, it's a great cart. It's something definitely to think about. How are you going to store them? How are you going to keep them? It's worth it to buy a cart or hangers or something so that you're not like, I don't know, putting them in totes or whatever, because you don't want to do something on a daily basis that could potentially hurt the instrument. So find a nice way to store them if possible. You probably are going to want to get some tuners, at least one, probably more. If you're going to teach kids how to tune, you're going to want to get at least about 10. So think about that and think about how many you might want, but tuners are not super expensive and you can get more later. That's buying the ukuleles is really the big price first. So if you want to then go back and get tuners, that's not super expensive, but get enough. Again, when I taught guitar several years ago, and so in my initial grant application, I put in a grant for, or in the grant, I wrote in something about like an abnormally large number of replacement strings because I was just afraid they're going to break like crazy. And the people at West were like, no, you don't need that many replacement strings. So they helped me bring that number down, but you might want a couple so that in case something does happen, you can replace those as needed. Eventually, you're going to need to replace the strings on the ukes in a few years. But initially, you probably don't need all that many replacement strings. And then the last thing I would say, and this is something I'm going to talk about a little bit later, is dots. If you're planning on putting dots on the fingerboard, that's something you'll want to get and have available so that when you're getting ready to teach students, you have these to put on and you're able to make that happen. Okay, let's see. Ooh, someone says, what do you plan to do for storing them over the summer? Leave them on the cart or put them back in their boxes? That's a great question I have not yet dealt with, and I would love if people would leave their ideas about that. Do you take them all home? Like, what do you do? Because I know they're not going to air condition that building. So the nice thing about these Macalas is that they're not wood. They're plexiglass. So I'm not as worried about like, oh no, everything's going to warp. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would love if people would leave their ideas about what do you do over the summer. I'm going to circle back just really quickly because I said something about what brands to use, and a lot of people had great ideas. So for anyone listening to this later on the podcast, or anyone on Instagram who's not seeing this feed on Facebook, or if you watch on YouTube later, because I post all of these videos on YouTube and on my podcast, I want to briefly just talk about this so you can hear that. Okay, a couple things. People said... I like Macalas, they hold up well. Kala does have a giveaway a few times a year on Facebook, and you can win a class set sometimes. I think they're doing it less now, but it is something you can do. Karen says, Lana Kai, Oscar Schmidt, and Cordoba make pretty great ukuleles. Cool. Someone said, don't buy ADM brand ukuleles on Amazon. The necks come apart from the body. Oh, that is good to know. Thank you, Jamie. Let's see. Macalas, Diamond Head. Yes, that's the brand I was thinking of. Joanna, do Diamond Heads work well for you? I wonder. And I just saw at Texas Music Educators when I did a session there, I went down to the West Music booth and was talking with them, and they just rolled out their Westwood ukuleles. I think they had done them in the past and now either have a different vendor or a different process, but they said on multiple occasions, they're like, we're really excited about these ukuleles. We're really, really excited about these ukuleles. That maybe that the quality had gone up, but I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, I don't have their ukuleles from before, but I had their Westwood guitars several years ago, and they were great. So I don't know if people have Westwood ukes. Let me know how those work. Let's see. I have Mitchell. I've never heard of that brand, and I wonder what the price point is on some of these. That's the other nice thing about the Macalas is that they're a pretty reasonable price. I have a ukulele rack using a dryer rack. Oh, I've seen people do that. But I personally would worry that they would fall over. I have like a really sturdy rolling rack and kids are still terrible at putting them in. So that makes me nervous, but Joanna, good for you for, you know, facing my fears. Someone said, I don't want them to take up floor space, so I got the cases from West and hang them with 3M hooks. Oh, cool. I also know some people who have these little prong hook things that you can like drill into the wall, but they have to be drilled into the wall, and then you can just hang them on the wall. I don't have the wall space for that, so if you do, that's amazing. Let's see. Someone else talking about command hooks, about how they use that. Paracord hangers. Let's see. Oh, someone talking about summer, they box them up and take them home. Let's see. Original boxes. Someone said the diamond heads do stay in tune, but maybe not quite as well as the Macalas. Okay, all good to know. Cool, similar in price point. Mitchell's were about $30 each. I also tried Diamond Head, but it does not stay in tune as well. Cool. I think that I'm going to move on here in a second, but the last couple things, I think that the Waterman, the Macala Waterman, are about, help me if I'm right, I think about $49 before any discount. And then I think that the Sharks and Dolphins that I have are about $69 or $79 before a discount. So like I said, it's worth it to call West Music and say, hey, I'd like to buy 30. Can you give me any sort of % off? Okay, so let me talk to you about, that was all about how to get ukuleles, how to get started, or how to buy them. But let's talk about what to do as you're planning for a unit. A couple things. First of all, don't plan on teaching ukulele the day you get your ukuleles. Even don't plan on playing them much or yourself the day, because they're really going to need tuned. So one of the things about ukuleles is that if they come straight out of the box, the strings are going to need tuned, and when you tune them, they will stretch out, and then you'll need to retune them, and they will stretch out, and then you'll need to retune. So one of the things that I've heard, some really great suggestions, and my friend Shirley's on Facebook, so she can help me remember some of these if I don't remember. Shirley is my ukulele mentor, because she has all these amazing ideas. A couple things that I've heard. You can take pencils when you're tuning the ukuleles, and you can shove them here in between the string and the fingerboard. And if you do that, it pushes all the strings out, leave them overnight or over the weekend or whatever, and it stretches out the strings. So then when you go to tune them the next time, they will have been stretched out a little bit, and you won't have to tune them quite so many times. Another person said if you tune them up a half step or a whole step the first time from where they should be, that will also stretch out the ukulele strings, and then when you're ready to retune them again, you won't have to tune them as many times. Be prepared to tune them several times before they are ready to actually be used with humans. So what I did was I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything with them until after our winter concert. So I got them out in September, and I would tune 5 a day, or tune 10 a day or whatever, and I would tune them, and then the next week I'd tune, so there's no pressure like they need to be ready by Tuesday. It's like, oh, they need to be ready in 5 weeks. Okay, well, I'll just tune a couple at a time. And that really made things easier for me, but give yourself time to tune them. The strings are going to stretch out. The nice thing about these ukuleles I have is they hold their tuning really well. The first few weeks I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much tuning. But then once they get sort of to the right stage, then you don't have to do nearly as much tuning, which is really wonderful when you get to that day. Okay, so how do you remember what the string notes are? They're G, C, E, A. Those are the 4 strings. And my friend Shirley, I think, taught me George Clooney eats apples. That's how she remembers. Or maybe Denise taught me George Clooney eats apples. So recently, a student said, gotta catch 'em all from Pokemon. But that's how you remember G, C, E, A. And you can remember that, or as kids are learning to tune them, you can remember that. I personally don't have kids tune my ukuleles. I don't have time. I see my kids about 20 times a year. So I would rather tune them myself, do a quick lesson sort of at the end, and then not let the kids worry about tuning, because I don't have time for it. So you can get tuners that clip onto the end of your ukulele, and then as you're getting ready to tune them, it'll tell you whether you're close or not, or as you pluck the string, it'll work for you. This is the tuner I like. It's the Eno. I like this the most. I think because for me it's easy as I'm doing other things. I can say like, oh, it's not quite green, and I like that it changes color. A lot of people I know and respect really love snarks. I had snarks when I taught guitars, and I think I just got frustrated because sometimes the snarks can pop out this little socket thing here, and I just ended up hating that. Also, they are very accurate. They're nice, but I like the Eno thing where it changes color. I don't know, I just like that. So, but think about how you're going to tune them and get tuners, and if you want students to tune them, that's great. I see April just said, guitar tuner app, yes, but I don't want students touching my phone. And so I don't know if a student is going to be around, but the nice thing about the clip-on ones is they're just so quick. But yes, in a pinch, April, I've used the guitar tuner app, and I think there are some free ones. So thank you. I would have forgotten that was a thing. So thanks for saying that. So before you get them, they need tuned several times. Plan on that. One thing you might want to think about is dots for your fingerboard, or for your fretboard. Why the dots? Well, because then you could say put your third finger on the blue dot and a kid has a C chord. Or you can say put your fingers on the yellow dots, or whatever it is, whatever chord you're learning, and the kid immediately has the chord. Now I have my friend Lorelei Batiste-Long, who is a brilliant ukulele teacher, and she has done workshops at state MEAs and at local ORF chapters and Kodai chapters all around the country. She is brilliant. I went to her workshop at Texas Music Educators about ukulele, and one of the things she talked about, she was like, when I first started teaching, I was adamant, I am not using the dots. We're gonna fight through it, and we're gonna make it work. And then she's like, after a while, I was like, why am I making this harder on myself than it needs to be? And she put the dots on, and she was like, kids learned it like so much faster. And so what was nice for me when I first got the ukuleles, I didn't have the dots, and then I went and bought the dots, and then I just saw like a marked difference immediately, and it made my life 1,000 times easier. What's nice now at the end of the unit, I don't see kids looking at the dots. I mean, sometimes a little bit, but if I were to hand a kid a ukulele without the dots, I think they could still play the same basic chords that we were learning in class without. So I say dots, but I mean, you got to make that choice yourself. What dots are they? I bought these Avery removable sticker dot things, and they're quarter inch round. I got 192. They're not super expensive, and I put a link to those. You can get them on Amazon, like 2 days. I put a link to these on my recap page, so if you're interested, you can go check those out. But basically the idea, and there are a lot of different colors, you can do whatever choices you want. But basically the idea is you put a dot where your finger will go for a certain chord. So the way my class I'm doing it, I have blue dots are C. My red and yellow dots go together to play F. And the reason I did 2 different colors, this is just me in my first year not knowing anything, and I just did it this way just because. You could make both of these yellow so that F chord is just yellow, but I did red and yellow because I figured ketchup and mustard, right? They go together. But then when I'm ready for G7, you can leave your finger on the red dot and then switch your other 2 to the green to play G7. I don't know. It worked for me, but I know a lot of people do the same color for F, but there are some blogs online that have ideas about where to place dots and how to do that. So if you're getting started, sometimes even methods books have ideas about what colors you would do in what places. So think about that. I see April says you can use a paint marker too. Cool. And then I would bet, April, you can chime in, but I would bet that a paint marker would not come off maybe as quickly as these dots. The dots do have to be replaced every once in a while if a kid has like sweaty fingers or something. And so, you can think about whether you want a dot or not. One of the things that I do, and Karen just mentioned this too, some chords have dots and some don't. So I don't have 1,000 dots on here, as you can see. but we know a few more chords than this. So the basic first few chords that we ever learned have dots, and then as we build off of that, I can say, ooh, this finger stays on this dot, but then your other finger comes off the dot to this other spot. And so then you can use them sort of as like an anchor as you start learning other things to take you to where you want to go. But I think dots are great, and it's nice to have those sort of to start. So, okay, so tune and then dots. You want to do all of that before you get started. One thing that I have done this year, and I love it, is there are kid ukuleles, and then there's Mr. Rao's ukulele. And so my ukulele, I use the wooden one in my classroom, and kids have the colorful ones. Sometimes I'll pick these up as an example, but I just get nervous about germs. And so for me, it's really easy that I know which one is mine. The kids know which one is mine. They don't want to play mine because it's not as colorful and as fun. But then also I am not actively every day touching an instrument that a kid has touched. Because I don't want to get all those germs. What can you do about germs? I would say probably not Lysol wipes. I've asked around. Several people have said, no, don't do that, because it's probably not good for if you have actually wood here. If you just have a ukulele that's all plastic, I mean, it's probably okay. I don't know. I've been using the Eco Norwex cloths, the Enviro cloth. And all of the Norwex stuff says just use like a wet Enviro cloth, and something about the microfiber like magically kills all the germs. I don't know how it works, and maybe I'm just wiping a damp washcloth on all my ukuleles. I don't know, but everything from the company and all my friends swear by it, so I'm going to trust that it is killing the germs, just like I trust my flu shot, even though I don't know if it's actually keeping me healthy. So anyway, but the Norwex cloth, it makes me feel like they're clean, and I'm not rubbing Lysol onto my ukuleles. So that's cool. But clean them somehow if you feel like it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about resources in a second and the procedure. But we just talked about the unit. Before you even start the unit, you want to have them tuned. You want to have dots in there if you're going to use dots. And then decide if you're going to have your own separate ukulele or not. I would. Even if you just have a class set and just one is just yours, find a way to do that. One other thing you want to know before you ever start is how are kids going to get the ukulele from the cart into their hand back to their spot? What's the procedure you're going to use, right? You want to know, like, what is your procedure? What is your plan? And you want to have that sort of in place. Even if you decide later on, like, that doesn't work, let's change it. You want to have something in place so you're not just like, well, everybody go choose a ukulele, because that would be chaos. So think about like, okay, how are they going to get their ukuleles? So in my class, I've talked about this before, but I divide all my classes into 4 different teams. They're named after the 4 instrument families. It rotates every week, so there's a family of the week. So like this week, anyone who is in the brass team and the brass family got to go choose a ukulele first. And then came the strings, and then came the whatever. So if there's that one kid who's like, I really want the yellow one, I really want the yellow one, I really want the yellow one, and they don't get it, I can say, guess what? Your family's going to be first next week, so you could absolutely get the yellow. And I have not had kids freak out about that, but, you know, I don't know. You get to decide how you want to use the procedure for your classroom, but have a procedure so that you're not stressed out when your class erupts into chaos. That's sort of the thing about classroom management, is have a plan in mind before you get started, right? Begin with the end in mind. Okay, how did I teach this year? What was my progression? Well, honestly, the first thing we had to do was how do you hold the ukulele? So we learned how to hold it, how to carry it back to our seat, all of that, all the procedure things. But that really was a struggle at first. How do you hold it? How do you keep it in the right place? One of the biggest tricks with kids was getting them to stop strumming here, because when you strum on the ukulele, you usually strum higher. So I still have kids strumming over the sound hole because that's what they're used to seeing with guitars. So strumming up here was something that we had to do first, and that was tricky. So we spent time holding ukulele, then we spent time learning how to strum, just strumming with an open chord, this hand really doing nothing, just strumming different patterns, different rhythms. We did back and forth, we did echo, all of that sort of thing before we ever started playing a chord at all. I did a podcast episode with my friend Lorelei, who I talked about a little bit earlier, and one of the most, I think, mind-blowing and life-changing things was she said, when you first start with ukulele, the strings are C, G, E, A. Gotta catch 'em all, right? For Pokemon people. So here's the A string. What you can do, if you tune it down, you can tune it to G. That way, when you play, just open, you have a C chord. So if you're first starting and you tune all of the A strings down to G, they can just strum and they have an open C chord. And how many songs do we do that are one chord or a Bourdon? Any song that you do an Orff Bourdon on, you can do an open C chord and it works perfectly. So what we did was we tuned it down so it was an open C chord, because then it became G, C, E, G. And we could play a ton of songs. Kids immediately felt successful because they were playing along to songs, or kids doing a game or whatever, but we were playing. And so we could focus then not on our hands up here. We'd focus on just the strumming, and we got that down. And then when it was time, over the weekend or whatever, I would tune them back up. Ooh, that's too far. I'm trying to do this backwards. Yeah, I'd tune them back up, and then we'd learn the C chord. So you just put your one finger down, and you do the same sort of process, but this time now you've already got the strumming down. The next thing you have to learn is the chord. And I thought that was so brilliant, because when you're learning a ukulele, these are two very separate things, and you really can't do this until you do this. I mean, you can't play the chords until you've got the strumming pattern down. So that was nice to take away the stress of where do my fingers go on the fretboard and just worry about the strumming first. So that was a beautiful idea from Lorelei. If you're interested in listening to that podcast, she has other wonderful, mind-blowing ideas like that. You can listen to it. It's in the podcast feed, and I linked to it on the links page. So we did an Orff Bourdon, and then we started learning chords, and the order we learned them was C, which is just super simple. And then we learned the chords that would be in a C chord progression. So C, we learned F. This year I taught them G7. Next year I'm going to teach them G first, before G7. But I didn't know. I'm a newbie. And I thought, oh, perfect. F and G7 share a finger place. They share, your fingers, one finger stays the same on F and G7, so why not do G7? So I taught G7, and then I was like, ooh, later I was like, maybe I want to learn G instead. So next year I'll probably do C, F, G, and then A minor probably. But this year I did G7. By the time we were done with our quick little unit, it was C, F, G7. We also learned regular G, A minor, and A. And those all seem to work pretty well together. The kids like them. And several of them you could say like, ooh, now just alter this and you'll end up with another chord. But the nice thing about that by the time we're done is that they know enough to do a quick progression through C, which is a very common chord progression for songs that they're going to sing. Also, they have experienced a 7 chord and they've experienced a minor chord. So they know that there's a whole class of chords called minor and a whole class called 7s. And so they're able to sort of figure that out as they go forward. And one of the things I kept saying to kids was, my goal for you is that when we are done down the road, you could pick up a ukulele, or if you got a ukulele for Christmas, I said that a lot. If you got a ukulele for your birthday, or if you asked for a ukulele for Christmas, your parents can email me. I'll tell them which one to get. You can sit down and play. And in the progression, what we did was we learned chords. We learned how to read the chord, like the chord chart. We learned how to figure out how our fingers match that image. We read like lines of text with the chord above it. We also did play-alongs on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel by Dr. Jill Reese, and I've linked that on my links page. But she has amazing play-alongs, and she has a bunch of playlists that say like 3 chords, C, F, G, or 4 chords, C, F, G, A minor. And she has all of these songs that she has tuned down like popular songs that only use 4 chords that she has tuned down so that a ukulele could play them with C, F, G, and they would work. Like maybe they're actually an E flat, but she's tuned them down and did a play along screen so that kids can follow along. There are some great songs in there. So check that out. One other thing that, again, Lorelei, I've mentioned her name like 5 times because she's brilliant, and I've learned everything from her about ukulele, if it's good, and if it's bad, I've done it on my own. But one of the other things that she mentions, and she mentions this in the podcast episode that I recorded with her, was an app called the Amazing Slow Downer. And you can buy it on iTunes for your iPad or iPhone. You can also get it for your desktop. And I put a link to their page on the links page. But what's hilarious is if you go to their page, which is like Ronnie Music or something, it maybe looks like it's from 1996. Like, it is an old interface, but the app itself is amazing. So what it does, it can look through the music on your phone or on Spotify, and it takes it, it'll play it, it will slow it down, it will change the key signature, so it will tune it down if you want, it will slow it down if you want. So it makes pretty much any song with the right chord structure applicable and easy for your students to play. It is a fantastic app, and I'm going to use it for way more than ukulele, but I've been using it with ukulele. I have it on my phone so that I can like broadcast my Bluetooth speaker. But like I said, I've seen Lorelei has it on her desktop. I know you can get a desktop version, but the app itself is great, and I think it's only like $14.99. So totally worth it. Okay, there are a couple other things I wanted to chat about, and then I wanted to make sure I hit a couple questions. Let's see. As you're walking around the room and teaching ukulele, if you have a PowerPoint going, you're not going to have to run back to your computer. So I have this clicker, and it just, it hooks into your computer. There's a little thing that hooks into your USB port, and then you can just click through your PowerPoint. So this is nice to have handy in your pocket or in your hand so that you can click through if you need to, if you're using a PowerPoint when you're teaching students. So I would definitely encourage you. This one that I have, I put a link to it, but it's like $13 and I have used it forever. It takes 1 AAA battery. It's amazing. Let's see, get yourself a strap. There are a bunch of different kinds. I'm gonna do a blog post about different straps and things you could use. Tuner. Get a lot of hand sanitizer because I always, when kids walk in, I give them a little tiny squirt of hand sanitizer because I want their hands clean before they touch the ukes, and then I offer it to them if they want it after, because germ transmission, there are just too many opportunities for that. So I would definitely encourage that. And then get yourself your own ukulele to help, again, with the germ transmission. 2 fun things that I've used a ton. So before I ever started teaching ukulele, I made these ukulele task cards. And they are just little simple things, and we've used them in my class sort of as bell work. I put these up on the board as kids are walking in because you can get a PDF. There's a PDF. But it says stuff like, play through several chord cards and find 2 that you think sound good together. Switch back and forth. And it's got little prompts. These are great for centers, but I've been using them as bell work. But what I've really used more, honestly, that along with those task cards, I was like, hey, I should put in some chord flashcards. Like 2 years ago or a year ago when I was making these, I was like, that'd be a nice little addition. Well, I've been using these way more than the task cards, but the chord flashcards have been great because then kids can move them around and manipulate them and put them in different orders, and it makes my life so much easier. So I'm going to be coming out with a version of these soon that have finger numbers, but I like that these ones don't because kids have to like struggle a little bit to try to figure out how their fingers work. But anyway, these are been really, really helpful. Online, I put a link to Shelly Tomich has a program called Rainbow Ukulele, and I know a lot of people are like Rainbow Ukulele converts and they love it. I've never tried it, but I'll probably be buying it for next year because I thought it was just like Recorder Karate, like a belt system, but there is so much more in that system. And if you buy the teacher book and presentations, there's so much in there, and why was I trying to piece things together? And so I'm going to probably go and buy it and try it for next year. But another cool thing she has is Shelly has these, a version of the chord cards that she made that they're made to slip in underneath your strings, and then kids can just put their fingers there and then they pull it away and it sort of works. Oh my gosh, why have I never used those? So I'm gonna go and buy those. They're like $3.50 for that set. I'm gonna totally get it. But Rainbow Ukulele, I know a lot of people really love. I went to an amazing session at National ORF Conference this year with Gretchen and Sandy. If you know Gretchen and Sandy, and they did a ukulele book and or ukulele session, and then they have a book called like Strum It Up, and so I put a link to that on my links page too, because it's a cool resource too. Let's see. I'm just sort of quickly rushing through these fun things because I wanted to get your questions too. So these are called chord cubes, and on each side of the little cube is a chord and how to play it. And there are a bunch of them, all different, G7, A7, A minor, A9, A minor 7, and all these different versions that kids love to like, oh my gosh, let me see if I can play, like G minor 7, I want to try. And it's cool, and one of the fun things about it is it comes with this little stand, so they can set the chord in, and then it like points up at them, and they can try it out. Oh my gosh, they love this. This is by a company called Uncle Goose, and I put a link to that on the links page as well. But it's just so fun for kids to try it and see what works for them. Okay. Oh, and then, another thing that I've used, I already had these printed out because I use them for all different sorts of things, but I've used my food rhythm sort cards. If you've ever seen me talk about those, I've also been using my ocean rhythm sort cards, just as like an idea for strumming patterns. So they put them together in a different order and they'll strum like ta, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, or whatever. And there's some really, it's just fun to see kids sort of play around with that and come up with different versions. So find a cool rhythm set. I like the food ones that I've used because I've already printed them out. But also kids love playing around with food. So that helps us with strumming pattern. Okay. Kirsten said, my students are really confused on how to read tab. Are there any tips and tricks for getting them to understand how to do that? I don't know. I don't teach tab. That's my quick answer. The long answer is I don't know. I have not tried it. And the reason I've not tried it is, again, I'm trying to think long term, like when kids go home and pick up a ukulele, are they going to look online for tabs so that they can play a melody, or are they going to look for the chord so that they can strum along and sing to it? And I personally think that if they're going to like get into a band or something else, they're probably going to want to do the chord first. If they get really dedicated, they'll be able to figure out a YouTube video of how to play tab or whatever. But I don't think as many kids are interested in that as they might be in just learning the chords and figuring out good ways to fit them together to play songs. So, and again, and maybe also kids when they're watching YouTube videos and they play along with the play along videos, they really feel accomplished because they're playing along with an artist. And I don't see that as much when I've seen other kids play tablature. So I don't know if that really answers your question, and I hope that it gives you sort of an idea of why I don't teach that. But I think that that's something I'd want to do like down the road after we already have chords under our belt, if that makes sense. What do students play when they're not supposed to? Do you take away their instrument and make them rest for a few minutes? Sometimes. Yeah, if they're really being disrespectful, and they don't like that. they don't like not being able to play along. So especially if a kid is being really terrible and really pushing you and testing you, you can take away the ukulele and be like, well, time to do our favorite play along now. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry you don't have your ukulele. I wish you could do it with us, but we've got to move on. So, yes, sometimes I do take away the ukulele if need to. We start ukuleles next week. Can't wait. How do you deal with tuning? This will be my second year teaching ukuleles. I talked a lot about this. Julie asked that. Tune them beforehand, and then the first couple lessons, I tune them. If I'm going to teach kids how to tune it, that comes down the road. But I want them to feel excited about ukuleles and get really good at it and want to play it and then have to learn the maintenance part of tuning it. So that's coming down the road. What sort of modifications do you do with those students who are not able to play? And I'm assuming this means like physical limitations. I don't know. I don't have students with those physical limitations yet. And so I don't have good answers. But the nice thing I saw, Julie, when you asked that on Facebook, I already saw some people starting to answer that question. So I'm going to put that question in the Facebook group, which on Facebook is Every Moment Matters Music Education Community. And it's one I started a couple months ago, but I'm going to put that question in there, Julie, and see what other people answer, because you're going to get way better answers from people who have experience with it than from this guy who's never had to deal with that. So I want you to get good answers, and I saw some good ones on Facebook already. Let's see. Jennifer says, what grade level is best to start ukulele? Do you teach chords or single finger notation first? How many weeks do you teach ukulele as a unit? I started in 4th grade, and I would do 4th and 5th grade. You could maybe do 3rd, but I'm already seeing my 4th graders are struggling with just the act of putting your fingers on is tricky for them. It's not common. I mean, it's just not a feeling that they're used to. So the hand-eye coordination is hard enough. So I would not go down to 3rd grade. We start with chords. We do not start with melodies. That can come later. And how many weeks do you teach? With my schedule, I have this nice thing where I've got like 6 or 7 weeks between breaks. I'm on this weird balanced calendar, and it sort of worked out well that we started it just before the last break and we're going to end on this next break. So it makes it a little bit easier. I see someone on Instagram just asked, do you let kids strum while passing out the ukes? I'm not sure whether to ask them to sit quietly or let them explore. I let them explore a little bit. I mean, how many times are they told all day? On the 3rd tile, be quiet, no talking. You know, it's like I give them, they get a few minutes to, you know, as we're passing out, to sort of just noodle around. Because guess what? If you were in a workshop, you'd probably be doing it too. Let's see. Do they each have their instrument? Do they share and take turns? Great question, Sarah. We have enough that we all have our own. When I was talking with Lorelei for the podcast, she said when she started, she only had enough for half of them. And she liked that because then kids wouldn't complain about their fingers hurting and they would switch back and forth. It kept the anticipation up. They could help one another. So if you only have enough for half of your class, buddy them up and think about how you would do the, time to switch or not time to switch. Let's see. Do you teach chords or melody? Talked about that a little bit. Do you use picks? No. Because I don't want them to use that as sort of as a crutch. So we use fingers first. We first learn only with our thumb, strumming with our thumb. Then we learn you can use your first finger. So then you can do either one. I let them choose. Only in the occasion it's like, I have a cut on my fingers or I've burned my fingers or whatever, do I give them a pick? But I want them to get used to using their fingers first because that's a little bit more traditional. And then when we do use picks, we use felt picks. Favorite book to use? I've sort of talked about that. Do you do stations with them? Yeah, I sort of talked about that. I have those exploration stations that I've tried that I made and they work really well, but that's something we sort of do sort of at the end. But it's mostly a lot of like learning chords, working together, doing play-alongs. And then I've shared in the last couple of weeks about how we've been taking the chords, making our own progression, taking those food rhythms, making a strumming pattern, and then putting that all together. That's sort of what that's the most like exploration we've done, and they love that. I recently bought 10 ukuleles for my classroom. Problem is I have about 20 or 30 students. I was thinking of using the buddy system. Yeah, I just sort of talked about that really quickly, but I would say pair them up and give them a chance to work together. If you don't have enough for each one, or even if you do, maybe use less and think about how they can work together. Okay, like I said, this was my first year teaching ukulele, so I do not have all the answers, absolutely do not. And so I would say I've linked a bunch of things on my links page. I'm just remembering now, West Music has its own blog about like how to order. So I'll try and find that blog post and link that in there too. But if you have questions about anything on here and I did not provide the links or did not talk about it, please send me a message and I'll try and address it or put a link or find you a way to get an answer. But the thing that is so great about this is what you're already doing, leaving questions, leaving comments. When we talk to each other about it, we come up with a lot better answers than if we're just like, well, I'm going to try this thing, say like, hey, Shirley, how did you do this? Or Denise, oh my gosh, your resources are so great. Where did you get that? Or what book are you using? Why are you doing it that way? That's how we get the best answers. So find your friends who are doing it and ask them. I'm going to be doing that in the coming weeks. Even though my unit is ending really this week, I'm going to be asking in the coming weeks, like, okay, now that I'm done, what should I change for next year? And sort of get feedback from people like that. Okay, I already said it once, but if there's anything I did not mention or didn't leave a link for, please send me a message and I will do my best to put the link on there. If you have more questions, I'm going to be putting more of these questions in that Every Moment Matters Music Education Community Facebook group. It's a closed group, but just request and I'll let you in. It's just so we don't get trolls in there. But let's continue this conversation. Thanks to everyone for joining me tonight and for listening on the podcast or listening on the replay. I really appreciate it. Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy your time with students.